Did you feel that? Are you feeling it? I know I'm feeling it. Everybody that I know is feeling it. You're probably saying, what is that feeling, Brother Bedford? It's the rising cost of everything. People are exhausted with the rising cost of food, clothing, and shelter, just basic necessities. And people are literally stressing on how to make the ends meet at the end of the month. I've been having conversations with people, and one person straight up told me they're close to retirement and they're afraid to retire. One, they don't know if the retirement is going to be enough to sustain them and if all of the benefits are going to be there under the threat of the current administration. But then also, they know that their cost of living is going to continue to go up and they're going to need extra income to kind of offset those bills. This is the concern of a lot of people. Again, stressing about business, possibility of layoffs or being job loss in the marketplace. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are happening. And so the questions are coming in. Well, what do I do to make the ends meet, to make this extra income, to make money without some are already working two jobs. So I can't go get a third job. So how can I increase my income, make more money without my physical presence being there? I faced this question 20 something years ago as well. And it's like, life has these cycles and it's coming back around. That was at the beginning of the Great Recession. That bubble eventually popped in 2008, 2009, but it started a little bit before, especially in Detroit, where I'm from, when the real estate, because I was into real estate very heavy. But I was invited to a conference by the real estate guru that I was following at that time. And he invited us to this conference that had nothing to do with real estate investing. So that's a point. I want you to think about that. It had nothing to do with real estate investing. But he wanted to show us, and he revealed this from the stage, how he made more money selling the how-to information of real estate than he did with selling the actual real estate. Now, I want you to catch this because this is the advice that I'm giving everyone nowadays. There's two things that I'm telling people. You're getting this consultation for free. We're all media companies, meaning that we all have media in our pocket where we can do audio, video, podcasts. We all have social media channels or the access to social media channels that has literally hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people available all over the world. So we're all media companies. That's one. That's not the focus of today's video. It's the other piece of that we're all IP companies now as well, meaning that we all have intellectual property that can be used in the marketplace to generate income. So that real estate guru revealed from the stage, again, that he made more money selling the how-to information, his intellect, his knowledge. He didn't use the term IP. I'm telling you what that was now. If we rewind it, he would probably use the same term. He sold his intellectual property, his knowledge and experience of buying and selling and investing in real estate. He packaged that into home study courses and events and retreats and conferences, and he made more money selling the how-to, his intellectual property, than he did in the physical property. And so to answer that question more directly for everyone, Brother B, what should I be doing today to kind of offset these costs? Turn your intellectual property. Now, back then it was home study course. I mean, cassettes, VHS tapes, big manuals, all of that type of stuff. Now we have the ability to turn that intellectual property into digital products that can be delivered digitally. Now, when I went to that conference, I purchased the license to learn how to do that and to teach others how to do that. And this was 20 years ago. At that time, it was just called the information marketing business. And I literally had the license to sell that course. I went home, I started selling that course, and we would sell those courses for, I believe it was $397 at that time. But I was studying those courses. And at that time, again, early 2000s, there was one tape, tape number 7. I'll never forget it. It was about taking everything that you learned, but now putting it online. And the online space was just getting started, a lot different than what it is today. But I studied that tape and I followed it to the T, and it said, start an e-zine, right? You know, that's what it was called. And it wasn't called a newsletter. Start an e-zine, build up your list, and then make offers to start selling digital products. And again, it's took a long time to sell it. It wasn't as easy, right? PayPal was just coming out, so it was hard to, people were just getting used to processing orders and credit cards online. Um, it's a lot of us are still using dial-up, so uploading these digital files, even after you created them, was, you know, and I'm talking about just the PDF. I'm not even talking about audio and video. We just talk about PDF. Some of that stuff took forever. Anyway, I want to fast forward. So I was studying that tape and I started building my e-zine just to show you how, again, this is not new to me in terms of dealing with our people. My very first site was howtobeablackentrepreneur.com. That's how passionate I've been for decades now of working with and helping Black entrepreneurs. We had around 500 people sign up over a few months for my e-zine and asking questions, giving advice, all of that type of stuff. And the question came up, well, Brother B, because I started talking about the wholesaling aspect of the real estate business. Well, Brother B, how are you making money flipping those houses? And I said, since you all are asking, I'll create a special report. And I banged out a special report because there's only, at that time, it was only like 5, 6 steps to it, if that many, 5, 6, maybe 7 steps. What you would go through to identify, lock up, and flip an ugly house. And we were making thousands of dollars each transaction doing that. And so people ask, and so I wrote the report. And let me see if I can, I went searching and I found that report, which is crazy. Still had this, it was actually on one of my external hard drives. So let me see if I can share my screen with you. Look at there. This was the report. How to make $2,000 a month. Now, I had a gentleman who was already in the online space, great with graphic design. His name was Anthony. Still work with Anthony today with designing graphics and stuff for me. Again, I had the knowledge of the online stuff. He didn't know what I was doing. So I asked him to make this cover, which would give the appearance of a physical book, but it was a digital book. And it was actually a report that I typed out. They literally could have been on 2 pages, but I did a lot of white space and all of that type of stuff to turn it into, I think it was 11 pages. And people were asking how I was making this money. So I said, I'm going to type up this report for you all. How to make $2,000 a month flipping it. He couldn't even fit the full title on it, just to show you how technology was back then. Flipping nasty, stinking, ugly houses, right? And I sold that report for $7. So we typed it up. I think I can exit now since you've seen that. So let me stop the share. So I typed up the report, converted it to a PDF document, again, which wasn't easy back in the day. Matter of fact, I don't even think I did. I think I had to send the Word doc to him because he had, all of the Adobe stuff. He was into that. Converted it to a PDF, sent it back to me, and then we uploaded it online and on my server, which again took some time. And PayPal was just coming out, and I got the PayPal, my PayPal account, and I said, I'm just going to charge $7 for this report. And this report, I sent out an email late at night saying, you all have been asking, how I've been making money flipping these houses. I created a report and it's only $7. I press send. I waited later because I didn't think this stuff was going to work. First off, again, I'm not the guru. And then this is completely different from the physical product. This is a digital product now that people are not really familiar with, just getting started. Press send. The following morning, I avoided my computer like it was the plague. I didn't even want to open it up. Even though it was my business, I know I needed to open it up, but I avoided it like the plague. Finally opened up the computer, and to my surprise, there were these words, the four greatest words that I'd ever seen in my life, staring me in my face, that become my favorite four-word phrase. This: let there be light, let us make man. All of that type of stuff is good. But these four words, notification of payment received, changed my life. It just literally changed my life, because now I realize that I can take my intellectual property and get compensation for it. And so those are the words I saw: notification of payment received, notification of payment received, notification of payment received. I'm thinking that the computer is broke or it's a glitch. I refreshed the screen just to make sure that they were: notification of payment received, notification of payment received. Then I flipped over to the next, because I think it was only 10 to 15 that you could have on a page. Flipped it over to the next, and there they are again: notification of payment received. Within a 24 to 48-hour period, we had sold over 200 of those $7 reports. That was the easiest $1,400 I'd ever made in my life legally up until that point. But now I was hooked. I was hooked that I could take my intellectual property and put it in a report, a PDF document, and sell it for $7, and people buy it. I was hooked. So I just started, what do you want? Asking them, what do you want to learn next? So about entrepreneurs, it was time management, it was processes, email, whatever anybody wanted. I would just create a report and sell it for $7 or $10. And then we just started doing other things to kind of offset, but we were selling hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of these small reports, $7, $10 reports. I was reading a book called Conversations with Millionaires. That book had, I believe it was Stephen Covey. I'm trying to remember all of Sharon Lecter, who is the partner of Robert Kiyosaki. I believe Robert Kiyosaki may have been, if he wasn't in the book, again, I believe it was Sharon Lecter, his partner. So it was using the Rich Dad title, but Stephen Covey, Zig Ziglar, a few other, but there was only one Black person in that book. It was Wallace Amos from Famous Amos Cookies. Some of you may not even know who Wallace Amos is from Famous Amos Cookies, one of our earlier great entrepreneurs on the planet. But he was the only Black person in that book. And that's when the idea hit me like a lightning bolt. I said, wouldn't it be nice if someone interviewed other Black millionaires and turned it into, now this was a physical book that I was reading, but now think about it. Now I'm in the digital space and turn it into an ebook. So I mentioned it to a few people. They thought I was crazy. First, how are you going to start talking to millionaires? What millionaires are going to let you interview them? And then two, is people really going to buy it, right? And I said, well, let me give it a try, because this course that I was studying, these tapes said that it can happen, conduct these interviews and see what happens. So I called. This was the beginning of my relationship with Dr. George C. Frazier. He was the first person I called. Called down to his office, and because I was reading his book, Success Runs, they're on my desk. Matter of fact, his other book is somewhere around here. Click. I keep them close by. I was reading two books at that time. It was Success Runs in Our Race by Dr. George C. Frazier and Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dr. Dennis Kimbro. Two of our brilliant minds as it relates to not just entrepreneurs and business owners becoming millionaires, but they were teaching it, which made it double value, right? Not just their own life experiences, but they had already gone out and started sharing these principles in their books. And so I called down to Cleveland, Ohio. Um, Never forget, man, a young lady who was working there at as the receptionist at that time. I told her, I said, my name is Brother Bedford. I didn't say I'm a knucklehead from Detroit, but that's how I felt, right? I said, this knucklehead from Detroit, I'm calling. I got this idea, that I would like to interview Dr. Fred. I got this, at first I told her the idea, it's called Conversations with, Black Millionaires. And I got this idea to interview Dr. Frazier for a new book that I got coming out. Then I messed up and I told her, I said, for this new ebook. But one, people didn't know what an ebook was. So she was like, ebook. Then that's when she started saying, oh, I don't know if Mr. Frazier would be interested in that. And so now my heart is dropping. I mean, because she's really pouring it on. Well, maybe. Then I said, I tell you what, can I leave my number? He wasn't in. I said, can I leave my number and he can call me if, he's interested in being interviewed for the book. She said, I'll take your number, but I tell you what, if he doesn't call, you might want to try back in around 6 months. That's what she told me. So now I'm really deflated. My heart just dropped. But then she says, no, so that was the end of that conversation. So I hung up, my heart just dropped. About 5 minutes later, my phone rang. 5 to 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Again, these cell phones are just new now, right? But we got them now. Probably a little big cell phone, but it was a cell phone. And I could hear airport noise, like so, the announcements that you hear in the background at the airport. So I'm hearing that as I'm answering the phone. And then his voice comes across. Says, young man, this is George Frazier, and I hear you want to interview me. So my heart is pounding. Boom, boom, it's going 1,000 miles an hour. I'm like, yes, Mr. Frazier, but I do want to interview, but I can't do it this way. At that time, we had to have what was called a bridge line. We didn't have Zoom and all of those other things. It was freeconferencecall.com. I said, I have this bridge line. You call in and I call in, then I can record the interview on this call. He said, that's fine. That'll work perfect. He said, I'll be back in my office in around 20 to 30 minutes, and we can do it then. I said, sure, right? So I said, I'll email him the number. I did. I emailed him. He said, email me the number. So I emailed him the number, but that 20 to 30 minutes gave me enough time to write down around 5 to 6 questions to ask him. Then once he called in and I called in, now we begin the interview. And all I do is ask him the question. Now he's giving me his intellectual property, right? So he's sharing his. So my questions and his answers are creating an interview. We talked for around an hour and 35 minutes. And to be honest with you, that was the start of if any of you have been following me for some time, you know that I have a tremendous relationship with Dr. Frazier now. But that was the start of our relationship, that interview. I said, wow. So now I have the interview. I can download that MP3 file. And then I would send, so the plan was to send that file over to Fiverr.com that was just starting out at that time and have it transcribed so that now I have the transcripts of the interviews to go into my ebook. That's the plan. So I called the next person, which was Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. And Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, same situation. His assistants, I don't know if he'll, and I believe it wasn't I believe it was his wife was assisting him at that time. She said, I don't know if he'd be interested. Same scenario. He ended up calling me back later. And he had this, Dr. Kimbrough has this deep bellowy voice, young man. This is Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, and I hear you want to interview me. Same process. I say, yes, sir, Dr. Kimbrough. Give him the number. Long story short, he calls in. I got the interview. And then I kept going. After them, it was Les Brown, then Kathy Hughes, and then uh, Michael V. Roberts, Randall Pinkett, Lisa Nichols. So I just kept going on and on. I took the first 9 interviews. We had more, but I took the first 9, compiled them for the ebook. And then we put that ebook up online. And now we send out a press release. I use blacknews.com, shout out blackpr.com, shout out to Dante Lee, to kind of get the word out. Budding Black entrepreneur seeks millionaire advice and gets it. And so now people are buzzing about these conversations with Black millionaires, but now people are beginning to ask me onto their platforms to be interviewed, to talk about these conversations with Black millionaires. And so now I will go on these radio shows, all the XM satellite radios, Sirius, all of these different shows. It was very hot back then. I was on Warren Valentine show and a few other shows, and they would just ask me, what did I learn from these Black millionaires? I would just share that same intellectual property. Then they would ask, how do people get them? I'd send them to the website, conversationswithblackmillionaires.com, and people would be paying. At that time, we started off at $20 for the download of the ebook. Then we raised the price to 27. Then we raised it to 37. Then I started learning about other products that we could attach to it as bonuses, memberships, and all of that. This is a long story, but I just had to lay the base here to let you know this story, because now, as I'm doing these interviews, literally hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people are going to download these interviews. This is not my intellectual property. This is the intellectual property of others that properly positioned me. Knowing how to interview and do that, I was able to extract intellectual property from successful people, packaged it, and sell them into digital products. Last point I want to make before I want to wrap this up. Those interviews end up becoming a physical product that you can still purchase today. These are the original first two interviews that I had, Dr. George C. Frazier and Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. You can literally, and I still do, sell these on Amazon right now. So people buy the ebook still, a lot of people, and a lot of people still buy the physical book. Then here was the second set of interviews I did with Kathy Hughes and Les Brown is backwards on my screen. As you can see, Conversation with Black Millionaires, Volume 2. And I literally have all of those, and I should be uploading more of these as digital products after the initial run we had with just the big ebook that we had. Later on, I converted them into physical books. After I learned all of that stuff, I started putting them into my own books, How to Be a Black Entrepreneur in the Age of Connectivity. This was almost 15 years ago when we released this. After this was another book, I don't have that on my desk, called Notification of Payment Received, which again is my intellectual property on how I did this process that I'm sharing with you now. I shared it in a digital product then called Notification of Payment Received. And then here's my recent book, The Black Entrepreneurial Revolution. I'll put a link where you can all go get any of these books over on Amazon if you like. But my point is, just to kind of sum this up, I took my intellectual property, turned it into digital products that can now become physical products. But those digital products, those how-to products, those information products, those advice products, whatever you want to call it, they spun off into other digital products, courses. So I created courses around this stuff. I started doing coaching around this stuff. I started developing membership sites and networks, and now mastermind communities around the same concept of my intellectual property, or my network of intellectual property, or people that I know, packaging them and delivering it digitally and getting paid for it. So if I can do it, knucklehead from the city of Detroit, East Side, city of Detroit, what up, though? If I can do that, and I'm trying. The reason that I told the story, because if you really look at this, you're beginning to see all of the byproducts that came from just my intellectual property. Again, the relationships, the physical products, the relationships are just that you can't even put a price tag on that. So all of the things that have come from it, the coaching, the consulting, the speaking at conferences and workshops. I didn't even mention workshops. You can take your intellectual property, and this is what you see today with webinars and trainings and workshops. All of this sprang from that $7 tape in the early 2000s that nowadays is probably more important as education is changing and shifting. People are studying or at least becoming more uh, interested in self-education, buying courses, training, ebooks, downloads, joining networks, communities, and masterminds. If I can do that, why can't you do that? Right? So somewhere on this above or around this video, I'll put the link for the books again, just so that you can just take a look at it and just see the reality of what I've been doing over the past 20 years. And then I'll also put a link that if you want to talk to me about this stuff, right? Have a quick powwow, how you can take your intellectual property and turn them into digital products, coaching, consulting. And mind you, I've had to build up the confidence to do that. Right? A lot of you won't do this, or you hadn't been thinking about this because man, who's going to do it? So I tried to take it into my story, like, man, all of the fear, the anxiety, the trepidation that I felt, how it melted away and how it wasn't that big of a deal, and how I had to realize that I do know something. And just like you, if you've been working in any space for any period of time, if you've solved any problems, which is what we do as entrepreneurs, we solve problems. You have solutions in your head. You have relationships. How do you take that IP and turn that into digital products, digital platforms that could help to generate income that could offset these rising costs that are not going away? So that means we have to do something different. So either you're going to work harder or you're going to work smarter and use your intellectual property to develop these digital products or digital, yeah, I'll just call them digital products. I don't want to confuse it, but just digital products and all of the variations of the digital product, right? So this is your brother Bedford. I hope that was clear. If you got questions, post them below. Reach out to me. See how I can help you to fight inflation, coming recession, all of the other challenges, uncertainty. And you don't have to think about what else I can do. Start looking inward to taking what you already know, who you already are, and take that intellectual property and turn them into digital products. This is your brother Bedford. I hope this has been useful for you. I hope it's helpful. If you know somebody who might want this information, why don't you first like and subscribe, hit the bell so that you can be notified, because I want to do more instructional videos like this and even get a little bit more granular and teach the nuances. I can't do that in this video, obviously right now, but I wanted to kind of give you a big picture of what you should be looking forward to doing in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. I've been doing this for a couple of decades now, and it's only going to increase for the next 20 years without having to go out and get another job or increase my physical labor. How do I take my intellectual property and turn it into digital products? I want to help you with that. So like, subscribe, share, comment, do all of those things that people say that you should do. And let me know if you want to know more about how to do this. This is your brother Bedford, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Take care.